Recently, Tina Brown, the former editor of Vanity Fair, The New Yorker, and The Tattler, and friend of late Princess Diana, made some pretty intense comments that have left the Meg inconsolable. Just absolutely distraught, apparently. Lots of floor crying, I'm sure. A reference to the many times Harold claims to have found her in fits of tears, on the floor specifically. Hi everybody, I'm Beebs Kelley. Welcome back to another video. Before we get into all of this, please do click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Leave a comment if you would like to. If you don't know what to comment, leave a yellow heart. And click the like button if you want to. So the biggest problem for the Meg over this huge story and strong evaluation that carries a lot of weight is that it's not some faceless bully or just the press, the media nice and vague. It's very difficult to create victimhood out of an educated appraisal of your behaviors, especially when it comes from a well-respected person, which Tina Brown is, especially in the journalism industry. Both Harry and Meghan tend to rely on claiming this sort of conglomerate, faceless beast of the media and the public are just mean and bullying and unfair and doing things not nice to Harry and Meghan. And they rely on this, and it has worked with a small percentage of the public, very small percentage of the public, in creating a victimhood narrative for Harry and Meghan. The problem is that it doesn't work with most people, because most people see that they are not bullied, but yet criticized for their bad behaviors and poor judgment, which is exactly what happened with Tina Brown. And the reason why this is different from a lot of the other stories and why we haven't heard a clapback from Harry or Meghan is because you can't really argue with it. So while I'm sure Tina Brown is now at the top of the Meg's list, it's yet another really public, very strong and forceful rejection. And it's true. And the public can see that it's true. The public know that Meghan lacks good judgment because it's obvious. We have all been seeing it with our own eyes. And this is another problem that the Sussexes face. They've made so many mistakes and questionable choices and come across so very unlikable and unsympathetic that when a news story comes out, whether it be about their bullying or their poor judgment, the public is primed to believe it. They do believe it. It only affirms what everyone has been thinking and saying. Anyone who's been paying attention to the Sussex spiral of doom knows that they screw everything up. They're the Duke and Duchess of self-sabotage, if nothing else. Once upon a time, most people would have given the Meg the benefit of the doubt, or even believed some of the exaggerations and lies that she spouted in Oprah or in other projects. But at a certain point, one must consider the sheer volume of negative stories and reactions to the couple. Not just negative media coverage or headlines here and there or juicy stories from the press. Not just that sort of a thing that can lean into gossip. Not just blind items or comments online of people reacting to them and what they see in the media, but actual reactions and responses from people whom they've actually met and spent time with or been around, people who have worked with the couple. People who have actually spent time around this couple have come out in surprising numbers to reject them or react negatively to their experience. Let's go down at least some of the list. Spotify, for example, had a working relationship with the couple, and when it ended, they were called grifters who lacked talent. The critique of Meghan for her podcast and other endeavors was that she's just not a very good voice talent. Palace staff went to HR because the Meg was unkind and an unprofessional boss and was creating a toxic work environment. Archwell and staff from California went to Hollywood Reporter and Daily Beast to complain of Meghan's mean streak. The Cut interview author Allison P. Davis had a very negative experience after the article came out, which we are covering in an upcoming video. Piers Morgan, too. Senators and a governor basically blocked calls from Meghan. The Archetypes team outed the Meg for taking credit for their work. She's been pushed off red carpets for taking too long duck-facing at the camera. Her old castmates from Suits do not maintain a relationship with her. Old friends have been ghosted as soon as she got engaged. She cannot find a CEO for American Reviewer Orchard Montecito, or whatever it'll end up be calling, and has been rejected strongly by the trademark office. The list goes on. People who have had any sort of contact with Harry and Meghan, be it professional or personal capacity, but oftentimes in a professional capacity, end up having a negative experience and then talking about it. So at this point, benefit of the doubt is really hard to extend to Meghan and Harry because there's been so many people coming out with negative experiences of the couple. People have seen these failures and this lack of judgment with their own eyes. So when someone like Tina Brown says it, it sticks and it hits hard. I think this plays into people's fascination with the Sussexes anyway as well, because we can see the situation for the train wreck that it is, but the Meghan and Harry continue down the tracks anyway, and it's just bizarre and intriguing to watch it all unfold, but also because it reminds people of narcissists or those high in such traits in their real lives. There's something very interesting about watching these dynamics play out in the public eye, especially when they're so obvious. Harry and Meghan have very obvious high narcissistic tendencies. More so than a lot of people the public has the opportunity to observe. A lot of real celebrities spend much less time making statements and out in the public world. In part for that reason, when you have a job that is in public view at least some of the time, it can be really overwhelming to where the celebrity really prefers their privacy, but also it leaves open opportunity to interpretation and sort of labeling that person as cocky or self-absorbed or just, any myriad of things. So a lot of celebrities take the approach of staying off social media and staying out of the public eye as much as possible for their own mental well-being and just sense of calm and peace and inner calm. Meghan and Harry haven't really taken that approach. It's very clear that they spend a lot of time reading all the articles and comments and probably watching coverage on themselves. But also they put themselves out there a lot, making lots of statements, publicizing all their events and all the things that they do, and putting out all sorts of news about themselves unnecessarily. And so because of this, we have gotten to see a lot more of these toxic traits showing up in real time in a way where it's impossible to excuse. Anyone who's been close to a highly toxic person or around someone with a lot of narcissistic traits or really high in narcissism, we'll just simplify and say narcissists for the purpose of this conversation, but you get the idea. The sliding scale where people can be just really high in certain narcissistic traits that are problematic or difficult to deal with, but not necessarily NPD. That out of the way. You know and recognize the self-sabotaging and self-absorption that comes with narcissism. This sort of two-faced love bombing that can occur. The use and discard pattern. It's all too familiar with the Meg. Something else that narcissists are notorious for is indeed poor judgment. For example, the Cut interview itself was jam-packed with self-important statements that came off really, really bad. But according to the interviewer, the Meg made them with the sort of confidence that only a narcissist would, thinking that they would really sell her to the public. And they didn't. They made her look silly and self-absorbed and ridiculous. Meghan believed these comments to be acceptable and likable and normal, and they're not. So let's take a closer look at what exactly Tina Brown said. The big headline that came out of this is Tina Brown's comments that Meghan has the worst judgment of anyone in the world, and I would completely agree. Even just with fashion, we see Meghan execute horrible judgment in her fashion constantly. That's why she is such a good example of what not to do, which is a valuable lesson. It's nothing personal when it comes to evaluating Meghan's style. She just attempts something that could have potential, but she ruins it in execution or fit or all sorts of things, or it's just the wrong thing for the occasion, etc. That's all stemming from poor judgment. Showing up wrinkled, showing up in the wrong type of an outfit for an event. Very, very poor judgment. Showing up in something completely ill-fitting and just tacky looking. Horrible judgment. But we also see it in every other arena. It's not just in fashion. She says that Harry is very good at being Prince Harry, and that's the tragedy of all of this, is that he is the most talented member of the royal family without doubt in terms of being a prince, which is all he does know how to do. He's really sort of flawless at it. As for Markle, she says, I think he's pretty much in the thrall of Meghan. The trouble with Meghan is that she has the worst judgment of anyone in the entire world. She's flawless about getting it all wrong. She really is. Now, I would argue that Harry isn't necessarily the most talented member of the royal family in terms of being a prince. I don't think that's accurate. I think that Prince William is very good at being a prince. But Harry still took a lot of things personally and made a lot of mistakes. It was just that the palace was really good at covering them and covering for Harry and creating this image of him being fun-loving. If we are to believe what Harry has said since leaving the royal family, all the time that he was with the royals, he was only putting on a smile as an act, that was not real. He didn't actually enjoy his time. He didn't actually enjoy the projects or the events that he attended. That's what he has said from his own words. You can go back and find the videos on my channel, or you can just find the words from himself. He said so even in the Oprah interview. I think I put a clip in of him saying that. At least I tried to include it. If you remember, I couldn't include a lot of the clips. So I'll try to link that for you here, the video that discusses it, where he said he was basically only smiling because that was the job and he wasn't actually happy as a working member of the royal family. Before Meghan even came into the picture, he just wasn't happy doing it. So if that's true, then Harry definitely was not good at being a prince. He was bad at it, and the palace just made him look happy about it, really. And he, like I said, made a lot of mistakes. He takes a lot of things personally. He takes himself a little too personally for that job because he gets into petty squabbles with the press over little things that he shouldn't. He lacks the judgment to be good at being a prince. Meanwhile, Prince William is hardworking and diligent and seems to genuinely enjoy the events and tasks that he goes to, and not in an over-the-top, I'm faking it sort of a way, in a really normal, down-to-earth sort of a way. And so I would argue that point. But I do agree completely and wholeheartedly that she says Meghan is flawless about getting it all wrong. It really is fascinating how she is able to get it all wrong. The next quote from Tina. She's a perfectionist about getting it all wrong. Her issue is that she doesn't listen. She has all these people, asks them their opinion, and then doesn't follow it. She does what she wants to do. All her ideas are total crap, unfortunately. She says that Harry is naive, and he's really unschooled in the ways of the world. Being Prince Harry means that I doubt if he ever booked a table in a restaurant. The army was great for him, and he was extremely good and competent in there. That really helped turn him into a real person. But she says that Harry was the lamb to the slaughter in this situation. He was terribly impressed by Meghan. He thought that she knew it all. She persuaded him that she was the savvy Hollywood wheeler-dealer who could come in and make them stars and all the rest of it. And he just sort of blindly followed her like a child. It is true that Meghan's ideas are not good, but also that she has this narcissistic tendency to think that she can just wing it and just do it, and it'll all just work out. And it's just ridiculous. Things take real effort, and I think both Harry and Meghan have underestimated the amount of work and expertise and effort that pretty much everything they've tried to do actually does take. And it shows up in ways of them looking really amateur and just repeating the same sound bites over and over, years and years on. And while Harry may have benefited from his time in the army, a lot of people say that he was treated very differently and very sheltered in there, and I don't know that it did turn him into a real person. I think that he still lacks so much real world knowledge, even just in Spare. One part, I think, personifies Harry's lack of social awareness and judgment and realness as a man. This one part. The part where he discussed rubbing Elizabeth Arden cream while thinking about his mother, Princess Diana, because she used to use that cream on her lips, and thinking about her as if she was in the room while he did it. That, I think, is a perfect example of Harry's immaturity, lack of awareness, and poor judgment. He's not a real dude. He's very, very sheltered, very, very out of touch. To put that in a book and think that it would come across any way except for super weird, enough said. The general consensus is that Harry was quite manipulated by Meghan, that he didn't have the awareness and understanding that she wasn't some big name in Hollywood. Like, he didn't quite grasp that she was really, really low down on the totem pole to the point where she didn't have a whole lot of pull, and that she was able to create this idea and this plan and give him the impression that she could do all of this and make all of this work, and it just hasn't. And I think maybe now he's beginning to see how much it didn't work and how much it's never gonna work and how bad of advice and how poor judgment Meghan has had with this stuff. The fact that he wasn't able to see that all of this was going down the wrong path from the start shows that he too lacks good judgment. And he too hasn't really ever developed into a real, actually like fully aware person. Unfortunately, Markle made every mistake in the book and she's kind of run out of road. I don't know where Meghan goes. Harry could still, as I say, make a comeback. He'll always be Prince Harry. He'll always be the grandson of the Queen and the son of Diana. And I think that's fair. There is a chance that Harry could easily fall back into following the guidance of a team within the royals, but not with Meghan, because she was so discontent with it all and so unwilling to cooperate. And when you're at that level where there is a degree of diplomacy involved in that job, you can't just go rogue and do whatever you want. You just simply can't, because the job does involve staying within a lane and within the borders of that diplomacy that's required in that job. And Meghan just was unwilling to do that. Harry, however, grew up with those borders in place much of the time and used to people doing a lot of stuff for him, but also giving him instruction, showing him what to do and where to go. And so there is probably a part of Harry that would be willing to and able to come back to that, but I don't foresee it as something that at this point he would necessarily want to do, because I think a big part of the issue with Harry and Meghan is that they both want to be right and seem to be quite stubborn about being right. And the fact that they've both spent so many years trying to drill into the public's head that they are right and the royals were wrong shows that they're both still pretty unwilling to bend on that in any way, shape, or form and admit that they made a lot of mistakes and that some of the stuff that they did was wrong. Most of the stuff that they did was wrong. Meghan, I don't see ever being able to come back, and I don't see her being able to muster any sort of a successful career, at least definitely not on screen. She doesn't have the acting chops and charisma for it. But as far as like this role she's trying to carve out as job she's trying to carve out with Archewell as being like philanthropist, leader, etc., and trying to do American Review or Orchard Montecito, I don't think either of those things will really pan out. I think it'll be just another thing added on in her list of failed endeavors. I don't know. What do you guys think? Where do you think they go from here? And what do you think of this article? How do you think Meghan felt about it? And do you think she went too easy on Harry? I think she did just a tad. I think she went a little bit easy on the guy. What do you think? Leave it in the comments. I cannot wait to read them. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. I will see you next time. Have a happy day, everybody. Bye.